So today we're going to be going over plant and animal cell biology. Let's get into our intro to cell biology. So by definition, what is biology? I think I went over this maybe in our first lesson, but it's the study of building blocks, the building blocks of life, which are just cells. So it's the study of cells. What do cells do? Well, cells kind of do everything for you. Something isn't living if it doesn't have cells. It produces and uses the energy so that you can move around, like you can move your muscles. You create food, and then you can also repair. Whenever you get hurt, your cells are there to make you better, so that you don't just end up, permanently hurt. Although this one kind of depends on which cells, because like nerve cells can't repair themselves. So for example, if you like sever your spinal cord, that's why when people are paralyzed, like you're paralyzed and you can't get better. But other cells, like if you cut your skin, those ones get better. It just depends. Okay, so what are eukaryotic cells specifically? Well, they have membrane-bound organelles. So their cell structures, and they're held together by a protective membrane. It has various roles, but really like the main one is to protect, and then also to only allow some materials to pass through or to exit. So you can kind of think of this as like a fence. So we have a fence outside of our house, we're protecting from strangers just randomly getting into our house, right? But if we have somebody coming over, a friend, well then we can open our fence and we can let them in. So yeah, the cell membrane lets what it wants in. And then also you can kind of think of a cell like a ball of slime, and then all the organelles inside of it are like little beads inside slime. That's a cool thing about it. So yeah, so what to take away from this is a membrane, protective. Yeah. So let's get into our activity, modeling animal cells. So can somebody read our objective for us? Go ahead, Erin.
Objective: students will compare the components of plant and animal cells with a focus on a cell structure and function.
Perfect. Yeah. So can you guys give me, if you guys remember any or know any, can you guys give me some examples of an organelle? Does anybody know what some organelles are? Go ahead, Roshan.
The nucleus.
Yep, that's the main one. Any other organelles? Yeah, Roshan, go for it. As many as you can name.
Okay, well, I think there's some called the endoplasmic reticulum.
Okay,
the
yeah,
Golgi apparatus. The vacuoles.
Okay, that's not animal cells, but yes.
There's chloroplasts. That's in plant cells, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I forget. Does a mitochondrion count as an organelle?
Yeah, it does.
Okay. Yeah, that's all I remember.
No, that's really good. So a lot of those are actually more advanced organelles, like ER, and the Golgi apparatus. So we won't be going over some of those, but we'll definitely go over mitochondria, nucleus, chloroplasts. Yeah. So does anybody have any other ones that they want to name before I move on? Yeah, he named a lot of them. So
yeah.
Okay. Oh, do you have one, Aaron?
Well, no, I was gonna say he named all of them that I know.
Yeah, he really did. Okay. So what are organelles in animal cells? Well, organelles are just the small worker structures that exist everywhere. So, I mean, while the nucleus is extremely important, it doesn't, the nucleus really has no purpose without things to give demands to, right? So the important ones are the nucleus, mitochondria, cell membrane, cytoplasm, lysosome, and ribosomes. Now, an important thing here is that these aren't the only ones that exist. With just these, the cell wouldn't function really well, right? But these are the main ones, and kind of like the base, the foundation to a foundation. So let's move on. The nucleus. The nucleus contains the cell's genetic material. So without the nucleus, you really don't have anything. It's everything, kind of. You don't really have life without the genetic material. And it's pretty much kind of the boss or the control center, and it's just telling everything what to do. So let's find an analogy. Okay, in a classroom, who would be the nucleus in a classroom? Roshan?
The teacher?
Yep, the teacher would be the nucleus. Now, who would be the organelles? Erin, go ahead.
Students.
Yeah, so So, it's important to remember, like, yeah, we could have a teacher and the teacher is telling everybody what to do, but is there anybody to teach without the organelles? And on top of that, there's a classroom, even a classroom without the organelles? No, it doesn't work. So, they both help each other out. So let's move on to the mitochondria. So the mitochondria makes energy for the cell. It's pretty much one of the main contributors to a process called cellular respiration. I don't know if you've ever seen mitochondria, if you've made those graphs at school, but they look like kidney beans, which is kind of cool. Then you might have heard a joke on the internet where it's the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. That's kind of a good way to remember it. You could also say mighty mitochondria. Yeah, it's kind of difficult to say actually, but the mitochondria uses oxygen to convert chemical energy into nutrients from nutrients to energy, like ATP. ATP is the energy that we use. And then ATP helps us move our muscles. Like I said earlier, we need cells are giving us the energy to move, to digest food, to really do anything. So ATP is kind of a big thing, but it's energy. Okay, so we can move on to the cytoplasm. So the cytoplasm is everywhere in the cell, and it holds the organelles suspended in place. And it's everywhere, and all the organelles are within the cytoplasm, and it's kind of around the nucleus too. So and it's just a jelly-like substance. Again, you could put a bead in a big ball of slime, and it wouldn't really move unless it's really thin slime. It wouldn't move through it. It would just stay in its place, suspended there. So let's move on to the cell membrane. So we kind of went over this, but the cell membrane is a protective layer, and it decides what enters and exits the cell. It's going to be made up of proteins, and it acts like a fence. So I think I went over that kind of. So let's move on to lysosomes. So lysosomes contain digestive enzymes. And these enzymes are really strong. Remember in our first lesson, I think we went over, we have enzymes in our saliva that breaks food down. These are the ones that are a little bit stronger. And then they look like small little spheres. And then here, ribosomes. So ribosomes are going to be like our bodybuilders. They make proteins in the cell through a process called translation. Have you guys been over transcription and translation? You know what I'm talking about? Roshan?
I think I might have some sort of idea, maybe the converting of DNA to RNA or something.
Yeah. So
RNA to proteins.
Exactly. So DNA to mRNA and then mRNA to proteins. Yeah, you don't really need to know that, but ribosomes are responsible for a process called translation, and it's going to pretty much put amino acids together, and this is going to create a polypeptide chain, which is going to be our protein. So really, ribosomes they make proteins, to put it really simply. Okay. So let's get our materials. We're gonna need paper. We're gonna need 2 colors of paper so you can differentiate the two. A bowl. It's optional if you can draw an amazingly good circle, but if you aren't perfect at drawing circles, you might want a bowl. Also scissors, glue or tape, string, and colored markers. You're gonna want 4. And give me a thumbs up when ready. Go ahead, Roshan.
So string, can I use dental floss?
Yeah, that works. It's bendable. Go ahead, Roshan.
So about ribosomes, I was just wondering because I've seen some things online, and I was wondering if they're really membrane-bound organelles because prokaryotes also have ribosomes. So I was wondering if they really count as organelles.
Yeah, so we have 2 types of ribosomes really. We have free ribosomes and bound ribosomes. And free ribosomes are just going to be suspended in the cystole or the cytoplasm. And then our bound ribosomes are going to be kind of in our eukaryotes. I think eukaryotes have both types, but prokaryotes are only going to have the suspended ones. If that makes sense. Yeah. Good question.
Okay, thanks.
Is it okay if we don't have string?
Yeah, that's fine. You can, if you want to use a marker and you're going to draw it instead of use a string for it. I'm not going to spoil it. Okay, perfect. So let's move on to our step 1. So on your first piece of paper, you're going to outline a circular shape, which is why you can use your bowl, put it on a piece of paper, and then draw around it. And you're just going to color that. Any guesses on what we're drawing at the current moment? What could this circle be? I know a lot of things are circular shaped. Aaron?
The cell?
Yeah, we're drawing the cell right now. So, there eukaryotic.
Wait, how many circles? Or because on the diagram it shows 4 circles.
You can just draw one. We're only gonna draw one cell. I mean, I guess you could do the process 4 times if you wanted to, but you only need one. 3 thumbs up. Perfect. So our next step, we're going to cut out the circle, and then we're going to glue or tape it onto our second piece of paper. And then you can label it animal cell. And the inside of the circle, you're going to label it cytoplasm. So again, this is just like the jelly-like substance. And then when you label it, don't put it right smack dab in the middle. You might have some guesses why we're not going to put it in the middle. Maybe something else goes in the middle. But you might want to put it maybe at the bottom of the cell or at the top of the cell. But inside the cell, just somewhere, not in the middle. Okay, I got 3 thumbs up. So let's move on to step number 3. So yeah, okay. So we're gonna lay a string around it, or you can use a marker, a different colored marker, and you're gonna label this the cell membrane. Why do you think the cell membrane is going on the outside? You know, why don't we put this as another organelle on the inside? Any guesses? Roshan?
Because it's the membrane of the cell, so it surrounds the cell.
Yeah, it surrounds the cell, and you know, we have to protect our cell, and we don't really do much protecting if we're just floating around with all the other organelles, right? We have to be on the outside. So step number 4, we're gonna choose a color, and we're gonna draw a circle in the center, and we're gonna label it the nucleus. Now, I'll just tell you. So in the center, you know, the nucleus has all of our genetic information. So if it wasn't in the center, you know, of the cell, it wouldn't be as well protected, right? If it was on, like, if it's right next to the cell membrane, then anything that comes in, the first thing that it hits is the most important thing, the thing with all the genetic information, right? So the center of the cell is kind of a good place to have the nucleus. And then also, another thing to know, I know that earlier I said like the nucleus has all the genetic information. So a question that often arises is, well, how come, you know, my leg cells are different from my heart cells, right? Well, so an important thing to kind of note, I guess, would be that not all genes are expressed in all cells. That's what makes all cells so different. You know, we have the same exact genetic information. Your genetic information, what makes all of you, every single function, every single hair, right, is in every single cell in your body. But the genes that are being expressed are going to differentiate depending on where, you know, what it's supposed to be doing. So your heart cells are going to be different from your liver cells because heart genes are going to be expressed in that nucleus. So because your heart genes are being expressed, the cells act like a heart instead of acting like a liver. So yeah, that's something that usually comes up. So on to step number 5. So with another color, we're going to draw 2 little jelly beans, and and by jelly beans, just you can draw something that's, I guess, an oval. And then you can label them the mitochondria. We're gonna go over these functions again, so don't worry if you haven't memorized what each thing does. But yeah, we'll go over it. So let's move on to step number 6. So we're gonna draw 2 smaller circles, and we're gonna label them the lysosomes. I know this is getting repetitive, but it'll make sense when we look at them all. So I think this is our second to last step. These are gonna be our lysosomes. So let's move on to step number 7. So now this is the last step, and then if it looks like something to the right, then you did a good job. You're gonna draw 3 small circles, and we're gonna label these the ribosomes. It should look like something on to the right, but you know, it can vary depending on where you exactly put your organelles and how, you know, big your drawing was. Also, if you could keep your drawing to the side so I could take some pictures for STEMpower, that'd be nice. Okay, does anybody else want to do a little show and tell? Somebody else want to show theirs? Very good, Roshan. Yep. Wow, yours looks better than the picture on the screen. Okay. Anybody else want to go for it? It's okay if you don't. Amazing. I love that. See, you guys did a good job. Okay, so let's go on. Let's discuss a little bit. What are the organelles in the animal cell that we created, and what are their jobs exactly? So, let's start off. Should I name one and then you guys tell me what the function is, or do you just want to like go for it? Okay, should I do I think the first one's better. Okay, so somebody tell me what the lysosomes do. Roshan.
The lysosomes have powerful enzymes that break down random food and waste that are floating in the cytoplasm.
Yep, that's perfect. Okay, and then somebody tell me what the nucleus does. Aaron?
Stores the DNA.
Yeah. Okay. It creates the energy. Or did I say nucleus? I thought it was mitochondria. Sorry. Okay, yeah, the nucleus does store the DNA. Okay, and then how about the cell membrane? Samuel?
Protects the cell.
Okay, yeah, so it protects the cell, and then it also has things, moving in and out of it, like a fence. Okay. How about the mitochondria? What does the mitochondria do? Samuel, if you want to go for it again.
Creates energy for the cell.
Yep, perfect. Okay, and then how about ribosomes? Roshan, go for it.
It uses mRNA to create protein.
Yeah, that is definitely a more specific version of it. Let's see. Yeah, I think we went over everything. So that's good. You guys remembered every single one. You can pat yourselves on the back for that. So let's move on to our 5-minute break, your well-earned 5-minute break. So our next activity is going to be constructing a plant cell. So we just constructed an animal cell. Now we're going to move on to plant cells. So who wants to read our objective? Nikhil?
I was on mute the entire time.
Okay.
Students will visualize the inner workings of a plant cell and compare it to an animal cell with a 2D model.
Perfect. So let's kind of explore the differences between an animal and a plant cell. So first off, they have different organelles. So in a plant, we're going to have a cell wall, a chloroplast, and a vacuole. Those ones are new ones. This one should be underlined. So those are going to be the new organelles that we have. Now, if you remember which organelles are in an animal cell, does somebody want to tell me which one is missing from a plant cell? What do we not see here? Give everybody a second to think about it. So we have the nucleus, the mitochondria, the cytoplasm, ribosome, cell membrane. Which one's missing? Roshan?
Lysosomes?
Lysosomes. Yep, that's the one. Okay, so let's move on. So again, like a quick overview, the nucleus, boss of the cell, it's going to contain all the DNA. Mitochondria, powerhouse of the cell, it's going to create our energy. Ribosomes are going to be our bodybuilders, they create proteins through translation. Cytoplasm is going to be our jelly-like substance, and it's going to hold the organelles in place. We're not going to go over lysosomes because that's irrelevant to this part of the lecture. So our new organelle, we're going to have a cell wall. Now, a cell wall is like a rigid and like a strong structure. And it's going to just help the plant keep its shape. And so plant cells are more like rectangular cells. They're not really like oval shaped or circular shaped. So the cell wall is going to keep them rigid and, have a strong structure. What organelle does the cell wall remind you of? Nikhil?
The cell membrane of
Yeah.
animal cell.
Yeah, it's very similar to that, right? A cell membrane is going to be serving a protective layer just like a cell wall is. The difference, though, is that a cell membrane is going to have, things coming in and out like a fence, and then a cell wall is purposely there to keep the cell's shape. So another new organelle, we have the chloroplast. Now, you might know this, but plants go through a process called photosynthesis, and chloroplast is just going to help plants photosynthesize or produce our food and energy from sunlight, water, combination of things. It's also going to contain our chlorophyll. Now, chlorophyll is important because that's what makes plants green. I'm not sure what color plants would be without chlorophyll, but that's important to note. So, chloroplasts contain chlorophyll, and they're going to look like a green peanut M&M. So, let's move on to our vacuole. This is going to just store food and waste, kind of a good reminder of like a refrigerator. You eat something and then you go to sleep, right? So now you have all this energy, so you have leftovers, let's say, and you put it in the fridge and you're kind of saving it for later. And then also, I know that most of our organelles look like either rectangles, squares, circles, or ovals, but this one looks like a nice blob, so this one doesn't really have a shape. So yeah, so now let's get into our materials. So we're gonna need paper, again, 2 colors. And then we're gonna need calculator, or a small book or rectangular container, just anything that's rectangular, because that's how we're gonna make the outline of our cell. You're gonna need scissors, glue or tape, 7 colored markers, yeah, specifically 7, I guess, because that's the amount of organelles. And then you're going to need a eraser, also going to be served as an outline. You're not going to be really erasing anything. So Nikhil has an interesting fact. Apparently plants without chlorophyll are yellow because, okay, that makes a lot of sense. So you know how in the fall, the leaves that are falling on the ground are like orange. You know, they don't have their traditional green color. You rarely see green leaves on the ground because green leaves are like nice and healthy. Apparently it's because they don't have chlorophyll. So that's interesting. Thank you, Nikhil. When you have all your materials, give me a thumbs up. So our step number 1, we're going to outline our rectangular object on a colored piece of paper, kind of like how we did with our bowl and our plant cell. And then you could probably predict the next step, but so now we're going to cut it out and we're going to glue it or tape it onto our second piece of paper, and we're going to label it plant cell. So for step number 3, we're going to use a colored marker and we're just going to trace the cell cutout, and yeah, we're going to label the cell membrane. Now, does anybody want to take a guess what's going to go, what's coming next? What do you think we're going to do next? What are we drawing next after the cell membrane? Roshan?
The cell wall.
Yeah, and do you think the cell wall is going to be on the inside of this, like closer to the cell, like on the inside of the cell, or on the outside of a cell? Like on the outside of a cell membrane. Nikhil?
Outside.
Exactly. So it's going to be another protective layer around the cell membrane. It's interesting that plants have this, because, I mean, maybe it's the selfish human in me, right? But I feel like the animals probably would need it more than plants. So step number 4, using another color, we are going to, trace it on a thick border around the cell membrane, and we're going to label this the cell wall. Don't overlap the colors because they're not one combined protective, layer. They're not just security guards, but they're 2 different things.
Wait, so it has to be after, like, outside of the purple box?
Yeah.
Okay, because that's the color I used.
So for step number 5, in the center of our plant cell, we're going to trace the eraser that we have, and we're going to label this the vacuole. What do you think is going to go next? We're at the center of the plant cell. What do you think is coming next after the vacuole? Roshan?
The nucleus.
Exactly. So you have both of these in the middle.
We just traced the eraser, right?
Yeah. Don't actually use it because you'll have less cell. These are starting to get along. So step number 6, you guys guessed it, we're going to draw the nucleus. Okay, perfect. So step number 7, we're going to draw the mitochondria. We're going to use, I guess, a few jelly beans. And then you're just going to use the mitochondria. And then make sure you add like little squiggly lines on it, kind of like the picture to the right. It's kind of how we tell it's the mitochondria. And then you can use different colors so you can, which ones are which organelles are which. So let's move on to step number 8. So now we're going to use, we're going to draw several small to medium circles in another color, preferably green, and we're going to label these chloroplasts. Why would we do these in green? Why would we put these chloroplasts in green? Roshan?
Because they have a green pigment.
Yeah, and our green pigment is chlorophyll. Yeah, chlorophyll. Roshan?
If we don't have green, is that okay?
Yeah, it's perfectly fine. Just have it in like the back of your mind that it's going to be green. Go ahead.
So if we use green for a vacuole, is it okay if we use green for the chloroplasts again?
If you can tell which one is which, then yeah, that works. Or if you want to use a different color, but again, keep in the back of your mind that it it has chlorophyll, then either way works. So step number 9, we're going to draw 3 to 5 small to extra small, I guess that's what it's trying to say, circles, and we're going to label these ribosomes. And then the spacing for these, just make them like scattered, they're just kind of randomly suspended, right? There's no like coordinates where these go. Do you guys want to do you want to do a little show and tell? Want to show your drawings? Whoa, look at these. They all look very different. Wow, you guys are so good at drawing. Oh, wow, those are really nice. Yeah, okay. At the end, I'll take a screenshot and then maybe we'll post these on our Instagram. So let's move on into our discussion questions. What are some similarities and differences that we notice like in between our plant and animal cells? Roshan, do you want to start us off?
So I noticed that plant cells, they have like large vacuoles, and I'm pretty sure animal cells, some do like have smaller vacuoles, but plant cells have like the large vacuoles that contain all the storage and everything.
Yeah, that's a main one. Does anybody have anything else to add on before I name all them? Roshan has another one. Go for it.
Plant cells, they have like the main thing, the cell wall, which provides a rigid structure for supporting the building of plant cells. And animal cells don't really have that. They only have the cell membrane.
Yeah, so they have an extra protective layer that keeps their shape. And then does Nikhil have something maybe?
So, yeah, also, animal cells, they don't have a cell wall, which is mainly for the structure, like Roshan said. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one. Did Aaron have something? No?
Yeah, what's it called? The animal cell doesn't have a chloroplast and a ribosome.
They have ribosomes, but yeah, they don't have the chloroplast. Okay, and then does Roshan have something?
Plant cells, they don't really have any lysosomes to break down food or waste.
Yeah, so I think we've named almost all of them. So plant cells have a chloroplast, cell wall, and large vacuoles, whereas animal cells don't. Animal cells have lysosomes, and then in the shape, animal cells are more circular or like ovals, and then plant cells are more rectangular. Yeah, they're both eukaryotic cells. I know I started talking about prokaryotic cells before, but prokaryotic doesn't mean plant. It just means it's something completely different, like bacteria. And then animal. Sorry, I have to. I'm a little sick. Okay. Animal and plant cells both have a nucleus, mitochondria, ribosome, cytoplasm, and then you can name all of the organelles.